Hello everyone, now you will hear a brief summary of the cartoon Sea Monster. Enjoy watching. A boy is saved on a piece of a shipwreck, which is still burning nearby and sinking. Right beneath him a giant monster swam by, the creature that sank the sea vessel. The story takes us to an orphanage. Little Maisie Bramble reads to the other children about monsters that ravaged the shores and sank ships. But brave hunters appeared, who killed almost all the creatures. And the greatest among them is the famous Captain Crow. The nanny came in and sent the children to bed, and Maisie, she was asked to give up trying to escape from here. But as soon as the woman left, the girl, with the support of the other orphans, slipped out of the orphanage and ran to the seashore. Jacob Crow, on the ship Inevitable, is preparing to meet the legendary monster, the Red Roarer. 30 years ago, it took the eye of his adoptive father, the very same great hunter, Captain Crow. However, Captain's assistant Sarah Sharp managed to lose a leg during the hunt. In the distance, the tail of the roarer appeared, but Leia, the eyes of the ship, reported an attack on other hunters. And according to the code, they are obliged to help their colleagues first and foremost, so the captain ordered a new course, even though he had been waiting for a rematch with the roarer for 30 whole years. The Lamka Spin destroys the second ship with its tentacles, but Captain Crow's crew distracted it onto themselves. The harpooners took combat positions, waiting for the command to attack. But first, they fired a volley from the cannons at the monster. The cannonballs partially penetrated the tough armor of the Lamka Spin. Arrows flew into the damaged areas. The monster disappeared under the ship, and upon resurfacing nearly capsized it. The creature clamped onto the vessel with its jaws and began capturing sailors with its tentacles. Jacob frees them whenever possible. The hero grabbed a harpoon and launched it into the wound on its head. Lom Caspian but immediately got hit back by a tentacle and was thrown about 100 meters away from the ship. The monster nearly swallowed the hunter, but after struggling in the water, he managed to mount Lom Caspian. Captain Crow grabbed the harpoon and in a leap drove it straight into the heart of the giant creature. The monster sank to the bottom and Crow began to saw off its horn to later give it to the king. Suddenly, Lom Caspian came back to life and dragged the hunter with it into the abyss. However, the captain awoke on the deck. He was saved. But continuing the hunt for the screamer is no longer possible. The ship won't withstand another encounter. Therefore, the order was given to return to the port of White Rock. Half of the crew is injured. Jacob is also having his wound stitched up. The hunters worry that they won't be able to handle the red screamer. But then at least you will die with dignity. As hunters, Jacob inspires them. The captain called the man to his cabin. Crow says that as soon as they repair the ship, they will unleash all their might on the red screamer. But this will be his last voyage as captain. He will hand over the ship to Jacob. The old woman recalls how she saved a boy who was clinging to a piece of the shipwreck. Even then, Jacob vowed to rid humanity of these cursed creatures. The Inevitable entered the harbor. The townspeople joyfully welcomed their heroes. Among them is little Maisie Bramble. The girl met Jacob when he was celebrating in the tavern. Her parents were also hunters, but they died during a battle with the monsters. Maisie intends to join their team. Jacob immediately refused her. Well, in that case, she will talk to Captain Crow himself. To prevent this, the man put the girl in a carriage and ordered her to be taken back to the orphanage. The next day, Captain Crow, Jacob, and Sarah Sharp arrived at the king's palace. They handed over the Roklom Caspian to the ruler, but immediately received a reprimand for letting the Red Roar escape. This was reported by the treacherous Admiral Harnagold. The monarch informs them that the crown will no longer pay for the hunters' services. An incredibly powerful ship, the Emperor, was built, with which they would destroy all the remaining sea monsters. Crow criticized the ship's clumsy design, and most importantly, its captain is a complete idiot, who has never encountered monsters in his life. Jacob pleaded for one more chance to kill the roar. Let the royal family see who manages to do it first, either them or the Hornagold on the Emperor. The Inevitable set out to sea once again. The crew plans an attack on the Red Demon, but for this, they will have to sail further than usual to where no ship has ever been. It turned out that Maisie was hiding in one of the barrels. Jacob was going to drop her off at the nearest port, but the captain liked the spirited girl, and he decided to keep her. Maisie was housed with Sarah Sharp, whose cabin more closely resembles an armory. The woman gave the little neighbor a knife. The girl wants to kill the Red Roarer as much as the captain does. Suddenly a loud roar was heard. The ship rocked and one of the bombs exploded in the water next to it. The monster is moving towards the vessel. The cannons were loaded with incendiary shells. The roarer was fired upon as soon as it emerged from the depths of the sea. Dozens of harpoons pierced its thick hide. The monster will have to drag the ship along with it until it tires out. However, the roarer began to swim in circles, creating a massive whirlpool. Jacob insists that they cut the lines, otherwise the ship will sink, but the captain disagrees. Despite the prohibition, Maisie started cutting the rope, and Jacob did not stop her. The crew was saved, but the rescuers themselves fell into the water and found themselves face to face with the monster. But it simply swam away. The captain drew his pistol and demanded that the girl who disobeyed the order be brought to him. But suddenly, in front of everyone, he and Jacob were swallowed by the monster. The girl is currently in its mouth. After moving a little further, they found themselves in the nostril of the howler. In the morning, the monster swam to the tropical island. Jacob accidentally tickled the howler's nose with a spear, causing it to sneeze and expel the hunter. Soon it got rid of the second nuisance as well. The monster looks at the girl with interest and shows no aggression at all. That's why Maisie stopped Jacob from stabbing the eye with a knife. But the man does not calm down. Then the howler simply waved its flipper and a huge wave swept the hunter away. After that, it went on its way. Terrifying sounds are coming from the forest. The people found shelter in a huge shell. The girl asks if it's true that monsters used to come ashore and danger was everywhere. Even though it was a long time ago, the hunter is sure that it was indeed like that. However, Maisie believes that the monsters aren't all that bad. Perhaps they should just be left alone. It seems the howler wanted to protect them from the captain, who pointed a gun at them. Crow himself is enraged because the monster devoured his successor. And there's no way to avenge him. The ship is flooding. They need to return to White Rock. But Crow demands that they sail to the island and trade with the Sea Witch. And he doesn't care that this contradicts the hunter's code. Waking up in the morning, Maisie found a small blue monster next to her, which immediately ran away. Running out to the clearing, the girl fed the little one and picked it up. She accidentally stepped on a shell and froze in place. Jacob tries to get her out of there and persuades her not to keep the blue one for herself. The hunter grabbed the monster by the head and threw it into the thicket because they know nothing about this creature and what dangers it might pose. Jacob lost his balance and damaged a few more eggs. Yellow little monsters hatched from them and started screaming at the top of their lungs. The yellow ones thought that the people were their parents and hugged the couple. However, the real mother soon jumped out of the jungle. Jacob realized that the monster was about to trample them. But the mother just wanted to take back the last baby, which had clung to the hunter's back. The man exhaled. Now, they were safe. But suddenly they were attacked by a huge purple monster, resembling a giant crab. It had almost swallowed the man, but a howler appeared and attacked the crab. Maisie ended up on the monster's back, and she grabbed the howler by the horn. The girl helped the red one by grabbing the crab by the eye. Jacob joined the fight, wounding the monster with a harpoon. The howler grabbed the opponent by the claw and threw it back into the sea. The blue one helped Maisie get to the boat, on which, however, they couldn't sail anywhere anymore. The girl decided to negotiate with the howler and, with the help of the blue one and various fruits, asked the monster to give them a ride home. The gigantic creature did not refuse. Placing the people on its head, the howler swam in an unknown direction. Jacob tries to explain to the monster where it needs to turn. But Maisie is much better at showing the howler the direction it needs to go. Dozens of harpoons are sticking out of the creature's skin. Maisie began to pull them out. Meanwhile, Captain Crow docked at the island where the witch lives. The old woman sold him a poison that will kill the greatest monster, and a weapon capable of piercing even the toughest skin. It is called the Hand of God. A hungry Jacob tries to harpoon a fish, but he doesn't succeed. Then the screamer made the fish jump out of the water on its own. And finally, the people, along with the blue one, were able to eat. Jacob decided to help the girl retrieve the harpoons from the monster. He began to realize that the books lie about the monsters. Perhaps they didn't start this war. During the storm, the pair hid again in the screamer's nostrils. Dozens of sunken ships and monster skeletons lie on the seabed. The team of hunters realizes that after the deal with the witch, they are all cursed. The old net spinner swam past the ship. Most likely, they were scared off. the Screamer. And Captain Crow changed course. The monster delivered the people to the necessary island. Maisie asks not to be returned to the orphanage. Perhaps they can become a family. Jacob thanked the Screamer and promised that he would never hunt monsters again. The people released the blue one and said goodbye to the Screamer. But the creature sensed something. In the bay stood the royal ship Emperor. One of the soldiers shot at the monster and it went on the attack, sweeping everything in its path, including Maisie. They fired a volley from all the cannons at once, but it wasn't even able to slow the giant down. A moment later, the Screamer rammed the ship, breaking it in half. The monster wanted to kill Harnagold Gold, but a shot was fired at it. Jacob, the creature, saw the injured girl. At that moment, Captain Crow's ship appeared on the horizon, and the monster rushed towards it. Crow fired a massive harpoon at it, which struck the Screamer on the first hit. The poison began to spread through the giant organism, but the harpoon was pulled out so the monster wouldn't die, and it was finished off in front of the king and queen. When the monster was tied up with ropes, Jacob approached the ship with the girl. Crow found it hard to believe that his protege could have befriended the monster. When the girl came to her senses, she tried to stab the captain with a knife. This took her last bit of strength. Maisie asked Jacob to help their friend, but he decided to return to the hunters. Maisie also asks Sarah Sharp for help, but the woman is not going to betray her crew. The ship with the captured monster entered the harbor. It turned out that the blue one had been following them all along. The monster bit off a piece of the ship and freed Maisie. The girl saw the royal emblem and realized that all the books about monsters were printed by order of the monarchs. Inevitably, it stopped right at the king's palace. The hunters won the competition and proved that only they can handle the monsters. Meanwhile, Maisie tries to cut the rope binding the Screamer. Crow was about to finish off his prey, but Jacob stopped him. The captain was disappointed in his protege and attacked him with a mace. During the fight, he knocked Jacob into the water, and Sharp found the girl and helped her free the monster. The poison Screamer tried to rise but collapsed onto the ship and one of the palace towers. The monster gradually regains its senses and the soldiers rolled out the cannons. The Screamer saw his enemy and was about to finish him off, but Maisie stood in his way. She convinces her friend that if he does this, the feud will never end. Jacob took a spear and broke his leg. Then Maisie addressed the kingdom's inhabitants. She explained that the monarchs had been feeding them false propaganda for years, turning sea creatures into terrifying killer monsters and making people hate them. The kings used hunters to expand their empire and enrich themselves. Therefore, it's time to end the long-standing feud. The roarer turned to swim away, and the general refused to follow the king's order to open fire. The monarch had no choice but to flee. Since then, hunter ships stopped entering the Sea of Monsters, and Maisie found a new family.